Hello, good morning, everyone. Welcome. I would like to do this recording for final year project 2 briefing for this semester. My apologies, earlier this semester, back in February, I had scheduled a FYP briefing online for all of you, but I had to cancel because of an urgent matter at that time. So since then, a lot of things have been going on, so I have not been able to actually organize another time for the FYP briefing. So I would like to resort to this recording because of the urgent need for us to cover a few reminders and additional information for you to take note before you complete and submit your FYP report by the end of the semester. Okay, let us move on. All right, so these are the objectives of the briefing, three of them. First of all, to highlight common errors in FYP final report submission based on previous semester's submission. Number two, to explain proposed arrangement for FYP Viva presentation. Are we going to have online Viva as what we have been practicing for the last 1 year or slightly more than that? Or are we coming back to pre-COVID arrangement of face-to-face presentation? So I will announce that at the end of this briefing. And finally, the objective is to also to remind on submission deadlines and certain other requirements for you to take note. All right. Now, as far as common errors are concerned, the main things are about formatting, and the other part is about language tenses, right? So let's look into a few common examples of formatting error in FYP report submission. Now, this is with regards to the title page. This is from the handbook that is given to you or the dissertation guideline for UCOM and UPPR students. You can refer to the details of this yourself on page 9 of that document. Now, the important thing for you to take note is in terms of the appearance of the words that you have in the title on the cover page should be appearing or arranged to look like an inverted pyramid. So what is an inverted pyramid? Basically, it's an upside down triangle. Okay, and then in terms of the font size and font type as stated over here, right? So make sure you follow that. Now, this is the template that was given in the guideline or in the handbook. But let me show you a few examples, right? Good ones first. So this is an example of a good cover page that follows the instruction given in terms of the font size, font type, the use of uppercase, right, for the title, and also with regards to the information that you have to put in. Now, students who are in the Bachelor's of Communication Public Relations program, obviously you need to put in brackets the word public relations after that. Please also let's standardize, because officially the name of your programs, the word honors is written in full, right? It's not short form like this, HONS. It should be honors, HONOURS. Okay, so that covers or that applies for both UCOM and also UPPR. Okay, now the year of submission. So this is 2022 last year. In your case, it should be 2023. So please do not forget to update that. Right, so this is one good example. This is another one with a slight error, right? But I like to show this because the student really tried to get the inverted pyramid at the very nice geometric slope. Now, it doesn't have to be necessarily as perfect like this. As long as it looks like, it appears to be like an inverted pyramid, it should be enough. Now, slight error over here is the name of the student is written in lowercase. So by right, according to the guideline that is given, full name of the student should be in uppercase as well. Okay. Now, so the name of the program and also supervisor name as per the sample and also the template given. Now, so this is another good example. I would like to show you a number or a few not so good example for you not to follow. All right, so as you can see over here, the title of the research in the cover page is written or printed in lowercase. Right, so that's wrong. And then the name of the institution also is wrong. KDU University College. There is, of course, our old name, and in Kuala Lumpur also, right? We are not located in Kuala Lumpur. And then School of Communication, UCOM. So things are just not right, right, in the information that you cover over here. Right. So when we see something like this, it does bring a lot of questions on the part of the examiner, like myself and also my colleagues, right, whether or not this is something that is probably not original. Because you can see the word Kuala Lumpur over there, could be that this thesis was actually taken from some other students from some college in Kuala Lumpur, and the changes that was made was not done properly into the cover page. So please make sure that you follow this. This is a simple matter, right, that everyone by right should be able to follow. And I always like to emphasize on the importance of following formatting requirement, because all of you are communication students. Communication students, when you work in the communication and media industry, public relations, corporate communication, marketing, advertising, you will deal a lot with official format of documents. So you need to follow that. You can't say that I don't like this, I don't like this font, I don't like this type size, I don't like this spacing. It's not about you. You have to follow what is the standard requirement given to you. So take this as part of the learning experience of following a certain formatting structure as far as documents are concerned. Right. So this is not a good example. This is another not good example. Spacing is wrong. Right. Your title page should not be double space or 1.5 spacing. It should be single spaced. Right. So please make sure you check on that. Okay, now next is on abstract. Now, what are the things that you need to cover in the abstract? So these are the information that you need to cover as per the information that we have in the handbook or guideline given to you. You can refer to this content on page number 9. So let me show you a few examples. Okay, before we come to that, this is the specific instruction in terms of the length of the abstract. This is in reference to the assessment rubric for the FYP report. And you can see this at the end of the guideline or the handbook given to you. So the length is supposed to be between 200 and 250 words. So please be careful about this, be particular about this, make sure the range, right, the length of your abstract should be around the range that is given over here. Okay, now this is a good example of how the abstract should be produced. So put in the information as stated over here: title of the research, author, degree, major, right? Specialization, put it there, and then you put the information over here, and then put in keywords. Okay, so this is a good practice that even though it's not stated explicitly in the guideline or in the handbook, but this is something that we have seen students in the past would do. I've not been very particular about this in recent semesters, but I would like to make this standardized from now on. Make sure you put in your keywords in the abstract, because this is applicable or similar with the requirements that we often see in academic journal publications. You have seen also, I'm sure, in the process of doing your literature review, when you gather past academic journal articles, you can see that under the abstract you will have keywords being presented. Why these keywords are important? This is more for search purposes. If anyone wants to search for past research that covers these concepts and terminologies, so what they will be looking at could be the keywords that is mentioned in the abstract page. So they will decide then whether to read further the research that they have in your hand, right? So make sure you do this. Now, in the abstract, in terms of language tenses, in general, it should be past tense, right? Especially when it comes to explaining about the methods or the process of data collection, data analysis. As stated over here, right? 4 participants identified via purposive sampling. So identified, right? So this is past tense. Why? Because you already done it, right? So UGT was used, right? Again, emphasizing that this research has been completed. Okay, so make sure you change on that part. Now, this is something that I would like to also emphasize and be a bit more strict this semester. I know for some of you, when it comes to explaining your conceptual framework and also theoretical framework, you find from previous research or from a textbook a diagram that looks very relevant to your research. So you just simply copy the page or copy the diagram and paste it onto your FYP report. Please stop doing that, right? If you need to produce the diagram, reproduce or redo it on your own. Do not just simply cut and paste, okay? Because diagrams from a book is also part of the copyrighted content of that publication. So we shouldn't be just taking it, cut and paste into our own research report. So redo the diagram, simplify it to make it more relevant to your own research. Okay, now essentially in conceptual framework, the only thing that we need to see is what is your IV and DV. Independent variable, dependent variable. That's it. It doesn't have to have too many things. Right? Always remember, it's not about having many information or many terminologies or many theories in the theoretical framework. Quantity does not really matter. In fact, if we see too much quantity or too many quantity, it means something of a lower standard, because it gives the indication that the writer or the student who is producing this FYP research report does not really understand what is the focus of his or her research. So make sure whatever that you produce in the for the diagram to support your theoretical framework or conceptual framework is something that is relevant to your study. That's something that you can explain also and that you can defend as well for the purpose of the Viva presentation later on. Right? So please take note of that. Redo the diagrams, do not simply copy and paste. Now, next is with regards to the identity of your respondents, especially for those of you who are doing qualitative research, interview, focus group discussion. So you may perhaps have done the interview with your friends, so you feel that it's okay to just reveal their names. No, let's follow proper research ethical standards. That means protecting the personal information and the identity of your respondents. So you can use codes either as something like participant 1, participant 2, or respondent 1, respondent 2, or subject 1, subject 2. So that is up for you to decide. Or you want to use like a generic name also, maybe you can, right? Like John, but when you use the word like that, the name like that, like John, Jane, right? Emphasize, add a footnote or maybe in bracket a remark that not the person's real name, so that we know. Okay, so this is again part of the ethical standards that we would like to follow as far as research process is concerned. All right, moving on. Now this is with regards to APA referencing style. Now this is something that again can be a bit tedious, but if you actually pay attention and take some time on the details of what you need to do, it shouldn't be a problem, especially if you are doing this consistently. Every time you get any new materials, you update your list. But in any case, what you need to ensure is the APA formatting is followed as much as possible. Now, what are the very obvious area that we can see mistakes that can happen? First of all, when it comes to academic journal articles, as I've emphasized in the past, when you look into the APA guideline, the current version, version 2020 or the 7th edition, they now ask us to put in the DOI, digital online indicator. So this one needs to be there. So this often appears on the first page of a journal article, either on the top part in the header or maybe in the footer. So find that DOI address and then put it at the end of the reference entry. Okay, so that's one. Number two is with regards to the use of uppercase, lowercase, always remember the title of the article, right? The research article title. That one, only the first letter of the first word is uppercase. The rest are all lowercase. right? Unless it is a proper noun, no? Kata nama khas, someone's name or a name of a place, and then yes, you can use. You definitely need to use uppercase for the first letter for those words, right? Other than that, it should be all lowercase. So this, in a way, the third entry over here, this in a way is a mistake, right? Body, yes, B is uppercase, but image, I, D, T over here by right should all be lowercase, right? But this is correct. When you have a semicolon over here, the word that comes after that should be uppercase. But then when it comes to the journal publication title, the title of the journal, right? The first part is the title of the research, right? The article title. This one is the journal, right? Australian Journal of Psychology is the journal title. So for the journal title, yes, every first letter, the first letter of every word should be in uppercase, as well as the publication number, 72. So 72 means this particular journal has been published 72 times. 1 over here refers to the edition for that year. In this case, the year 2020. So this would be the first edition for the year 2020. Most most journals, they are published at most 4 times a year. So every quarter, quarterly, basically. So the number that you have in bracket by right should not be anything more than 4. If it's something more than 4, especially if it's more than 10, that looks very odd. Most likely it's a mistake. So it should be either 1, 2, 3, or 4. Maybe in some cases, some journals would produce a special edition, maybe to in honor of certain landmark dates. And so because of that, maybe the number can be 5 or 6, but it shouldn't be anything more than that. All right, so the publication type, the publication number 72, this one is italicized, so this one is correct. But the edition for the year in brackets over here, this one not in italics. Okay, so this is a correct example. 24 italics, 72 italics, and so on. But the number in brackets not italicized. Okay, so please follow that. The rest, of course, if you're referring to, especially for your introduction, if you have cited some other types of references, video production, YouTube videos, or newspaper articles, and so on, make sure you cite them correctly also. In the you reference them correctly also in the references at the end of your FYP report. Follow the guideline that is given. You can also Google, right, for APA style, for all kinds of references. They will give you samples, and you can just simply follow that. Now, moving on, language tenses. I've touched upon this a bit just now, but this one, yeah, again, I would like to repeat. As far as the abstract is concerned, by right, the language tenses should be past tense. So this is a mistake. Will be used. This is future tense. So your research by right, when you are submitting for FYP2, should already be a completed research. So it should be past tense. So this is wrong. Okay. Now, when it comes to writing your chapter 3, the methods part. So again, when you are describing the process of doing your research, the instrument or the survey questionnaire that you used, how did you select them? And how many questions does it have? How did you choose your respondents? How do you analyze? How did you distribute your survey? And how many participants participated or completed the survey? So all of that should be explained in past tense because you are explaining something that you have already done. Okay, so this is a mistake. This example over here is an error. Right? Will be conducted, will be done. Most likely this is coming from FYP1 because at the stage of FYP1, you submit the draft for your chapter 3 on methods, but you haven't done yet the research, as in like collecting data. So the language tenses is future tense because you haven't done it. But now at FYP2, by right, you have done it already. It doesn't make sense for you to submit your FYP report. You haven't done the research, isn't it? So the language tenses should be past tense. However, not for everything. There are certain parts on your chapter 3 when you explain about certain explanations about the methods that you are using, especially the benefits of, let's say, for example, qualitative research, the advantage of quantitative research, or the advantage of focusing on this group of people as the subjects in your research, explaining methodology issues like that. That is a common understanding that we have in academic discussion. Those information should be written in present tense. Now, why must it be in present tense? Because if you were to write this in past tense, it would give the indication that this is true before, but not true anymore. Okay, as in the example over here, right? The student wrote, quantitative research allowed researchers to represent complex problems. Now, if you use the word allowed over here, it means that it used to be something that researchers do, but not anymore, because the language tenses that is used over here is past tense. So because of that, you need to change this to, you need to maintain present tense. Quantitative research allows, right, and provides a summary of the findings. As defined by Creswell, it involves the collection of numerical data, which is subsequently analyzed. Not was. So again, to emphasize that this is something that someone has argued, yes, in the past, but it remains something that is relevant and applicable even until today. So when it comes to explaining those points or those information, it should be in present tense. Past tense is when you explain what you have done. As far as selecting respondents, selecting your data, methods of collecting data, all those process things. Those information, yes, you present using past tense. Right? So this is also an example of an error on the part of this submission. Now, this is actually a good example of the correct use of language tenses. So this study was conducted by adopting qualitative method. Right? So that's true because yes, you must use past tense for this, was conducted, because it's a research that is already completed, done already. However, when the writer or when the researcher over here explains about what is qualitative research, qualitative research refers to an in-depth study, refers to. Why refers? This is present tense. Why? Because this is still something that is applicable today. If the writer had used the language tenses to be past tense, qualitative research referred to means that it used to be like that, but not anymore. All right, so that will be wrong. All right, so make sure you know when and where to use past tense and present tense. Listen back to what I've just mentioned, right? If you need to hear back to the part I mentioned just now in the previous slide, my explanation about that again, please play back that explanation and look back at all these examples that I've given you. Okay. Now, moving on to the submission for this semester. Submission as stated in the timeline I gave to you earlier this semester. The deadline is 19th of April 2023. However, this would be just submission on Turnitin first. The actual submission of the full report is on 27th of April after Hari Raya. 19 April, this is submission on Turnitin. Now, again, I would like to emphasize on this point. When you submit on Turnitin, you only submit the content pages. Content pages, right? So what do I mean? What do I mean by content pages? Content pages literally means starting from page 1 of chapter 1 until the last page of chapter 5. Only, right? Nothing else. Which means when you submit on Turnitin, you do not need to include. Again, I repeat, do not include your cover page, table of content, abstract, list of tables, and so on, the reference list, and also the appendices. Don't need to put that when you submit on Turnitin. Only submit the content pages from the first page of chapter 1 until the last page of chapter 5. Why? The reason we are doing this is because we want to reduce the similarity index or percentage that you have, because the information that you have on your cover page, abstract, acknowledgement, and so on, and also references, they can easily be highlighted for similarity by turning in, where in fact these are standard information. So we don't want to have that problem, so we just want turn it in to analyze your content. So that means from chapter 1 until chapter 5, only that. Okay, so once you submit on Turnitin and then you get the similarity index report, that report you should generate and then download and include together as one of the appendices in the final report, FYP final report, and then later on you submit via soft copy before deadline on 27 April 2023, through email, email the document to me, to your supervisor, and also to the assigned panelist, another assigned panelist. Okay, so everything is done soft copy. Do not need to print anything anymore. Okay, so that is important for you to always remember. Now, I will talk about later on the Viva presentation schedule, but the last point I would like to see and explain over here is about the resubmission part, right? So what do we mean by no resubmission? Okay, before we come to that, this is the Turnitin ID for FYP submission, class ID, and also the enrollment key. Right, so you can look at this information, find the information or key in the information on the Turnitin website later on. All right, so coming back to the point highlighted in the previous slide, no resubmission after Viva. It means what? It means that after or when you present your research during the Viva presentation, it will be examined. So there will be a Q&A session where myself as the panelist, your supervisors normally do not participate in the Q&A, but the examiners, myself most likely, and then another lecturer will ask you some questions about your FYP. Now, whatever comments and even questions that whatever questions that we ask, or whatever comments that we make, or even suggestions that we make in terms of possible improvement for your research, all of that is for discussion purposes only. Right? It is for you to take note, for you to reflect back on what you have done, and possibly based on the feedback that we have given you, you can use this as reference if and when you do other research projects in the future. Especially if any one of you are going for further studies, postgraduate studies, master's and PhD. So whatever comments that we make about your FYP, you ought to take note and perhaps use that as some kind of additional reminder on how you can improve in the future. Okay, so there's no resubmission that is required. However, stated over here, resubmissions only required for special cases. Now, what are those special cases? Now, in practical sense, the special case over here refers to FYP final report that are submitted that according to or based on our evaluation, we feel that it does not meet the minimum requirement for you to pass. So because of that, we will give you the chance to do certain improvements and enhancements to your FYP report and then resubmit, so that you can perhaps be considered to pass FYP. So this is basically just a window of opportunity for second chance for students who their submissions we feel does not warrant a passing grade, which means grade of D or below. So when we ask you to resubmit, normally we give you 2 weeks to do so. So in that time, you are expected to do the corrections and improvements based on the feedback that we give during the Viva, or maybe also some additional comments or consultation with me after the Viva. Okay, so when you submit in those in cases like this, resubmit, or for cases like this, in most cases, the students would just get a passing grade of C. Maybe in some instance can get C plus, but most cases C lah, right? Because this is basically just, again, like I said, window of opportunity for second chance for you to resubmit in order to pass, only to pass. Because if you fail then you have to retake or redo the entire FYP again. So that is something that we do not want to burden you. right? So if there is a way that we can help you or salvage the research that you have done, then we will try to do so. Okay, so that's the purpose of having this, right? So I hope this is clear, but you can refer to also the information as stated on the guideline for dissertation or the handbook on page number 8. All right, moving on. Log sheets. Now I will need to collect all the log sheets at the end of the semester, upload all the log sheets into the to the assigned online folder. So click on this link. You will go to an online folder where you have individual folders under your name. So upload the log sheets forms into the folder under your name. Right. So like what I've explained before. Essentially, I would expect for every student, you will have at least 3 or 4 log sheets form every semester. So this covers, in general, about 1 log sheet form per month, right? So even if you have met with your supervisor multiple times in a month, you can condense all or summarize all the information or issues that you have discussed in 1 log sheet form. It doesn't have to be too many log sheets, right? So this is something important for us to ensure and really monitor that at least the process of supervision really took place, both on the part of you seeking the advice from your supervisor and also your supervisor giving the necessary or adequate supervision to guide your FYP. Now, those of you who may have scrutinized the assessment rubric would notice that the log sheet does not give you any marks, true, but I would like to say that when it comes to cases of students who are in borderline between one grade to another, right, situations where you need about 1 point or 2 marks, one mark or 2 marks in order to get into a higher grade, one of the factors or things that I will look into is the log sheets to see whether or not you have really done the necessary supervision and discussion with your supervisor, right? Because it could be a situation where it was an honest mistake on your part when it comes to certain things. So if we see there are evidence that this was something that you have discussed with your supervisor and your supervisor did not probably give you adequate advice on certain things, so the fault then is not on to you 100%. So we ought to consider that, so the marks that you get probably can be moderated to ensure that it reflects the effort that you have put in. Okay, so we try to look into those factors. Of course, not necessarily a very significant factor in terms of determining your grades, but it could be one of those additional things that can help you getting that extra mark in order to get a higher grade. This would be important for those of you especially who are targeting for award list first class honors. So getting an A or B plus at least minimum for your FYP would be very, very important. Okay, so please do this. So Viva presentation, finally, yes, as stated over here, we are going back to pre-COVID arrangements. Viva presentation starting from this semester or this year, 2023, we revert back to face-to-face physical Viva presentations. Okay, so again, I repeat, Viva presentation this semester would be physical face-to-face. Venue, I will arrange for that later on, and I will notify you on the details. But the date that we are looking at for the Viva is this, on the first week of May, starting from the 2nd of May until the 9th of May. The 9th of May is actually the week after that. The reason why I may need to extend the duration of the Viva presentation week is because that first week of May, there are 2 public holidays. On the 1st of May is Labor Day, and then the 4th of May is Wesak Day. So that would really eat up into the dates that we can possibly use when it comes to Viva presentation. So if we can finish in the 3 days of that week, that's fine, but we have to extend a bit, then we will do so. Alright, so schedule for the Viva presentation will be released in week 11 or 14th of April 2023. Now, this is an important point also for those of you, many of you I know over here after FYP next semester you are taking internship. So because of that, there could be some of you who are going to start your internship in early May or even earlier than that. So if that is something that is, affects you, right, please email me to request for early Viva. Okay, not later, early Viva. Right, so we can try and arrange for your Viva to be your Viva presentation to be held the week before the start of the month of May. So the last week of April, basically. So if that is the case, then we need to also negotiate possibly for you to submit a bit earlier as well, your FYP report, because the deadline for FYP submission is 27th of April. So those of you who want to do your Viva earlier, so you need to also apply some common sense because we need to have some time to read through your FYP report. So you may need to submit at least 2 or 3 days earlier than the deadline that is given. Okay, so in that case, then we can have ample time to prepare for your Viva presentation at the end of that week. Okay, so whichever the case, whatever the issue is in relation to your internship, please email me, explain to me your situation. We'll try to figure out something, don't worry. This is just a sample of how the Viva presentation schedule looks like. In most cases, the panelist number one would be me as the FYP coordinator. However, for students who are my direct supervisee, in which case I am your supervisor, definitely I cannot be your panel number one. So it should be a different lecturer. In most cases, panel number one, I would like to give or assign among senior lecturers. So most likely it's either Miss Marina, Miss Susie, maybe Dr. Jackson, depending on the topic. So that's the way that we try to regulate things a bit. So I would be the panelist number one for almost everyone in order to have that stability in terms of the marks. Because when it comes to the grade that we give you, what we do is we divide the marks 40, 30, 30. 40% of the marks comes from your supervisor. So the remaining 60% is divided 30% each amongst or between supervisor panelist number one and number two. So panelist number one in most cases would be me. So at least there is something which is stable, right, consistent when it comes to the marks that you get for that 30%. For the rest, right, it depends on your supervisor and the other panelists. But overall, also by the end of the when all the marks are collected, I will still moderate overall. So in my capacity as the FYP coordinator, if I do find there are reasons for us to do another round of moderation. And indeed, we have. We almost always have to do that every semester because sometimes we have supervisors that are too overly generous, and then you have also some lecturers and supervisors who are overly strict. So the marks are sometimes a bit too high, sometimes a bit too low. So I need to look into that also and see how we can moderate further. So normally this is done upon discussion between myself and also a few other senior lecturers who are part of the research committee that we have here in the school. Okay, so that's how we are going to do it. Now, extension. I do not expect that many requests, or I don't expect at all, if possible. That should be the case. Any application for extension for the deadline, because we have really stretched the deadline quite far up until the end of next month, end of April, after Hari Raya. So make sure you schedule your work, manage your time very well. Students who are celebrating Hari Raya, you need to organize your time if you want to have freedom of mind, right? Celebrating Hari Raya without thinking about your FYP, then finish your FYP, submit everything before Hari Raya. Right? There's no harm submitting earlier. Okay. or at the very least, you finish the entire draft, just remaining final checking, right? And then you submit after Hari Raya, after one final round of checking. But do not leave things last minute because you have ample time. Even those of you who, hypothetically, if you are in a situation where you're really behind your schedule currently now, doing FYP2, you still have about 1 month to complete everything. So it's still ample time for you to work on what you need to do. Okay, so as much as possible, this is me talking from a personal point of view. I do not like to fail students for FYP as long as you submit something that we can consider to be your individual work. We will try to pass you. However, if we have to fail you, we will fail you. And almost every semester, we do have one or two failures, right? Because the submission was just really poor. So even though we have given a second chance for the students to resubmit, the resubmission also was not done properly. So what do you expect us to do in those cases? Okay, so that is something that we need to have a common understanding, respect both of our positions. On your part, you are doing your work, we try to help you, we try to assist you as best as we can, but on our part, we need to be fair, right, to everyone. So definitely the marks and grades that are given should reflect the quality of work that is submitted and also attitude and diligence throughout the FYP process. Okay, so if you need to submit, if you want to submit extension request, then submit the form. The form you can find at the end of the handbook, but I will forward this to you again after this. So use that form, submit first to your supervisor. Your supervisor needs to give the recommendation, and then it will pass to me for approval. So I will then notify to you personally through email whether or not the request for extension is granted or rejected. Okay, so in any case, submission for request for extension should be done by week number 10, right, by 7 April 2023. So please, right, look into your situation, right, but as best as you can. Like I said, finish on time. Only when it comes to um, certain urgent and unexpected situations like hospitalization or certain family issues and sudden family issues that you may have, we can consider for the deadline extension request. But if you are working part-time or you are having trouble when it comes to personal issues with your friends or a significant other and so on, by right, it should not be the reason to be used when it comes to asking for deadline extension. Okay, unless of course it's something that is supported by some kind of medical report or report from a counselor, a psychologist, then that's something else. But when it comes to any personal issues or daily challenges that you have, by right, you should have been able to manage your time, right, prior to this point of the semester, right? Because FYP is not something that you started only this month or even this semester. It started from last semester. In fact, you can even trace back this to the semester before that when you were taking RM, right? When you were doing your research proposal, you are supposed to expand on what you have done during that semester when you took RM, right? And you expand that for your FYP. So the whole process was long, at least 2 semesters, 3 semesters if we include research methodology. So it should be something that is enough already as far as time that is given to you, right, to complete the whole thing. So please make sure you try as best as you can. But if you need to apply, follow the process as stated over here. All right, now this is just as a motivation. As in the case of students taking FYP, this normally correspond to the tail end of your studies. So after FYP is internship, after internship, you should be able to graduate. So we are hoping that all of you who are taking FYP2 this semester, and then after this and the semester afterwards, in May, you'll be taking internship. You should be able to graduate on time and attend the convocation this year in November. So we look forward for that occasion, and hopefully we can see all of you during that event wearing your graduation gown and so on. This is just my in honor of our original existence, KDU University College. I just would like to put this. But now to end the briefing, thank you very much, everyone. My apologies again for having to do this via recording, but I hope this is adequate for all of you to reflect on what are the things that you need to do and what are the things that you need to avoid to do as well. So please play back what I've explained in the earlier part. Look back at the slide. I'll be giving you this slide also. So the information, the samples and examples, look into that and make sure as best as you can, you submit your FYP report to the best of the quality that you are able to produce. And we will definitely be we look forward to reading your research, and definitely for students who have put in all the effort and the quality is reflected in the effort that you have put in, definitely we will, as best as we can, reward you with the highest grade that we can give. All right, thank you very much, everyone. If anything, please email me, especially for those of you who are perhaps needing some assistance when it comes to data analysis, quantitative analysis especially. Please email me. We can set a time for us to go through your data and see how we can analyze them according to your research questions. All right, thank you very much, everyone. Have a nice weekend. Bye-bye.